Alright, it is time for a bit of a reading, check-in, and favorites. Hey everyone, it is Shannon, and I'm super excited to be here today and to share with you this video. This is going to be my favorite reads from the months of June, July, and August. I was doing my reading a little bit differently over the summer. My focus was to enjoy the library, and as such, although I did track all my reading goals and stuff like that, my goals weren't so much of my goals. Because I had the one goal to rule them all, which was enjoy the library. Anyway, but because that changed sort of like the videos I did and the schedule and like so many things, I never got an opportunity to share which were my favorites of the month, which is something I usually share at the end of my reflections video. So I thought, hey, why not do that now? So this is going to be for June, July, and August. I am filming this towards the end of September, so I can't say what my September favorites are. Maybe that will show up in a September reflection if I do that, or maybe I'll do this seasonally. I don't know. I keep on changing things, and I'm trying just to go with the flow of things and see where things go, and it's so unlike me, but I'm doing my best. So anyway, these were all books that my favorites tend to be. What I do is I pick the top. I don't pick. I sort from my spreadsheet all of the titles I read in the month, and then the top 5 or 6 are the ones that I put as my favorites. Generally speaking, they are titles that I end up giving an 8.5 or higher. I rate my books on my spreadsheet out of 10, and then on Goodreads I, decide in the moment what that's going to be, because some 8s end up being 4s, some 7.5s end up being 4s, some 7.5s end up being 3s, and I'm not going to go into all of that because we're just going to talk favorites. So yeah, so this is I'm going to start with June and go through each of the titles. I think I ended up, I have 6 for June, and yeah, so these are generally speaking books that I gave 8.5 to 10 out of 10. They're all books I greatly enjoyed. There are a lot of them. Let's get started. So in June, one of my favorites was Shah and the Tree of Wishes by Roshani. This is the 3rd book in the Pandava series. I buddy read this series with Izzy and Kay Kelly, and we read books 1 through 4. The 5th book comes out next year. And I'm trying to remember, I don't know exactly where this places in all 4 of them. I don't know if it was my favorite. The second one might have been my favorite, but I did enjoy them. The first one, it took me a while to ease into it, and I learned a lot about my reading as I read the series. Yeah, but it's a great middle grade urban fantasy adventure series, and I really enjoyed it. Next up we have, When Aiden Became a Brother. This is by Lukoff and illustrated by Kaylani, Juanita. Names of all of the titles of the books plus any illustrators and translators will be down below, so it is there for you to enjoy. This was a wonderful, as you can probably tell by the image, this is a kid's book, a picture book. It was really, really wonderful. It really talks about a lot about gender, and it's amazing how much it packed into like 30 or so pages. And one of the things it talked about was the impact of assuming gender and the harm that can do, and also alternates of questions you can ask, because so often when someone is pregnant, the question is it a boy or a girl? Or if someone's had a baby, is it a boy or a girl? And I think it's really time for us to reframe that into a different question, and this provides both what happens when you assume, and then also some alternates, which I think was really wonderful. And that's just one of the themes that it deals with. This was just really, really wonderful. So if you're interested in gender, this is a great pick. Yeah, I loved it so very much. Next up we have, so different. Escher on Escher, Exploring the Infinite. This is by MC Escher, the artist, and it was translated from the Dutch by Karin. This one was one that I read, I think, towards the end of my May reading challenge of working on the books I'm currently reading, which is going to have a resurgence soon. But yeah, so this is a nonfiction art book by the artist MC Escher, or the graphic artist MC Escher, as he refers to himself. I loved it. I love nonfiction art books, so it's not really any surprise. This one, he talks a lot about not his process, like his thought process, and it was fascinating. It was very different than what I would have assumed. Assuming, not good, right? Learning is better than assuming. So yeah, and because he does a lot of these interconnected pieces, and it's just not what I expected, and it was wonderful. So that was a thrill to read. Also nonfiction, How to Be a Good Creature, a memoir in 13 animals by Cy Montgomery with illustrations by Rebecca Green. I don't know if I ended up talking about this one too much. It might have popped up in a Friday Reads or a wrap-up type situation. I don't think it was one of my pulls through May, until maybe the last week, which I didn't do videos. I did video for, like the May into June video. Anyway, nonfiction book about animals. Cy Montgomery is very well known for it doesn't have the octopus, Soul of an Octopus, I think it was, but this was wonderful, and I half read it in ebook and half listened to it. The audiobook is wonderful, but they are really vignettes, so I found it hard to listen on audio, even though I enjoyed the stories, because when I listened on audio, I need to have clear stopping points, and this has that, but I need it to match the activity that I'm doing. So I switched over to ebook, and which was wonderful because there's illustrations of animals. There are some really tough stories in this one, to be honest. So, you know, if you so some sensitivity I think is required, and if you need to check content warnings, I would suggest that. There was a couple things mentioned in here that I wasn't expecting, and then also, of course, because animals, just very basically, humans live longer than animals, and so there's some moments that are tough, but there was also some other stuff too. But this was great, fantastic. It was a recommendation from my sister Jamie. Thank you, Jamie. I loved it. Next up we have, Blanky, okay, by Ben Clanton. He's the author and illustrated. This is a Narwhal and Jelly book. It's a board book, so it's very short, like, I don't know, 16 to 20 pages long. Narwhal, there's Narwhal and there's Jelly Jolt. It's just like a whole bunch of different things that you can do with the Blanky, and I love the creativity of it, and I love Narwhal and Jelly so very much. It's so hopeful and fun, and Narwhal's very inclusive. Sometimes Jelly feels excluded, but Narwhal never means to exclude him. So sometimes those kinds of things come up. I don't remember if they did in this book, but they can throughout the series. It's a great series. I think I might have read everything so far. I think there is one coming out, or maybe just been released, about school, I think, so I have to read that one. The great kid series, like, it's just, I absolutely love it. So there we go. And then next up, more kids books. Oh, that one's really hard to see. Okay, this is called From the Stars in the Sky to the Fish in the Sea, written by Kai Chen, by Tom, illustrated by, I got that wrong. I forgot. Yeah, written by Kai Chen Tom, illustrated by Wayana and Kai Young Chin. All of the information will be down below. I just didn't transpose the name correctly. This is another absolutely wonderful and gorgeous kids book. I think it was about a kid that goes to school for the first time, and they're very different from everyone else. They live in the creativity and the imagined world of their own mind, and kids aren't very responsive to this, and so there's some challenges there. I think that's what this one was about. It's been a while since I've read it, but wow, this was the top. This was the top of the pile of 6. It was amazing. I absolutely loved it. It's kind of funny to look back in June and I look and I see 4 out of 6 are illustrated, and oh, that's not true. Well, the MC Escher had diagrams, or like had artwork, but like there's a lot of kids' book, there's a lot of illustrated works, there's some nonfiction. Like, it's interesting to see, like, when I put together a bunch of stuff over time, that the themes that come up and how often kids' books are really, really high. And I don't know why that ends up being the case. But it also lets me know that I really enjoy kids' books, so I should remember to keep reading them, because I get so much out of them, and often you read them in, you know, some of these, like the board book, you read that in like 10 minutes, like, you know, 30 minutes for like a picture book. You can take longer, of course, but it's just so worth it. It's just often the holds, again, the holds can be long, which is fine. I'm happy to wait. Okay, so now we move on to July. I can't remember how many I have for July here. We will find out together as we go. So first up we have, okay, Fun Home. Okay, this is a family tragic comedy by Alison Bechdel. This one I read because it's on a list that I'm working through. It's actually a Bustle article, the 25 books from the past 50 years that every woman should read. I'll put it down below. I've been slowly making my way through this book. And so this is a illustrated memoir. It was very different than I expected. It was a lot more serious than I expected. The themes, some of them are very challenging, and the author is very open about their relationships with their family, but mostly their father. And for me, sometimes it treaded a line which I know I have a differing opinion than other people, on like, she shared a lot about her father, including things that he didn't really share. And like, so she, like, and it opens that question of, you know, when you're sharing your story and other people are involved, you know, is it okay to share their story, you know? But her journey is very powerful, and there were so many moments in this, like really true, like hard family moments. So I really appreciated reading it, but it was a tough one. It was a tough one. This one actually took me a fair amount of time. It's like 250 pages or something like that, but it took me a fair amount of time. It is available on Scribd on ebook if you're interested. It was well worth reading, but it was just a lot harder, and some of the themes are pretty tough. And in terms of the family, because fun home is not, it doesn't mean fun, it means something else. So yeah, like it can be pretty dark, and then it is quite a like strong personal journey. So it was definitely well worth reading, but it was definitely harder to read than I expected. So yeah. And a different book, which is also a graphic memoir. I ended up reading a lot of graphic memoirs over the summer, and this one I really enjoyed, Genderqueer. This one I got in the LGBTQ grab bag from the library. Oh, by the way, Fun Home is LGBTQ plus as well. But Genderqueer, so 2 LGBTQ plus memoirs made my favorites of the month. And this is by Maya Kobe, also illustrated it. And this was great. This one I did talk about in a couple of my videos. I think the LGBTQ plus grab bag wrap up from the library. Great graphic memoir, highly recommend it. It's one that I've seen on lots of lists, and I've seen lots of people mention it. Well worth reading, very, very good. I really appreciate it. It's one that is just as good as everyone says, and I highly recommend it. Also, oh yeah, more. Everything Volume 1, Collected and Uncollected Comics by Linda Berry. And this also includes the Girls and Boys from 1981. So the first half-ish of the book is like the collected and uncollected comics. I can't remember if there's a lot of Marleys in there. It's been a while since I read this one. But then there is the entirety of the collection, Girls and Boys, which also was a separate comics collection. So Linda Berry is a comics comic artist, also a teacher, and also an author. She has nonfiction books about art and comics and thinking and story and stuff. I love Linda Berry, like, oh so very much, and I'm working through all of her works, and so this is one that I got from the library because it was available through the library physically. There's actually a fair amount of her work is on Scribd, on ebook, which is fantastic, so I need to start working through that. This one has so many, like, her art style is just so unique, and there's some really, like, some of it's really kind of bizarre, some of it can be rather mundane. It was a really wonderful combination of things to read, and I'm really glad I was able to read it from the library, so that was great. Also, another one that, oh, this is different than the cover than the one that I read, but Ashes to Ashes by Harold Pinter. This is a play, and I read, there was a 2-play bind-up that I got, both by Harold Pinter. To be honest, I actually can't remember exactly what this one was about. Because there was one that was about trying to visit someone at a prison, and there was one about... I think this is the one that this was. It was just a discussion between a man and a woman in a room, and you just are trying to understand what their relationship to each other is. and what they're talking about and who they're referring to. I can't actually remember which one it is. Isn't that horrible? They were both really good. But yeah, so this is great. Odd plays have been something that I've been working my way through Ibsen, but I did get a bunch of plays from the library throughout the summer, and I'm really glad that I did, because I love reading them. I absolutely love it. So this one was great. Next up, oh, this is one of the oldest books on my Goodreads TBR. I finally made it through. It took me, I think, 2 or 3 months, and that's The Elephant of Hollywood by Michael Caine. No, The Elephant to Hollywood. I say that incorrectly almost always. So, because the elephant is a description of the neighborhood he grew up at, and for some reason, it's like I thought he was referring to himself as the elephant of Hollywood, which is not a thing, so no, that's not what it means. Anyway, this is a nonfiction autobiography by the actor Michael Caine. I'm not going to talk too much about this one because I did mention it in many videos. I absolutely loved it. It made me happy to be persistent about the oldest books on my Goodreads TBR, because I ended up enjoying this one so much. I can't say that for all the ones that I've read, but it just reminded me that there are some books that I've wanted to read for so long that I still do absolutely, or may still absolutely enjoy, and this was one of them, so that was a huge win. And then my most favorite of the month is, I'm just waiting for the picture to show up, suspense, The Very Hungry Caterpillar. This was so cute. This is by Eric Carle. This is actually part of my Those Books exploration. I don't think I'm going to do a video particularly on it because I don't have too much to say about it. It's absolutely wonderful. I think it was on the BBC Big Read. I think that's the list it ended up coming from. Oh my god, it was so much fun. And I'm actually really surprised that I hadn't read this one when I was a kid. Yeah, Very Hungry Caterpillar. It's just as good as everyone says. So now we move on to August, which was a pretty good month as well. And this one, I didn't write the number. I think it's 6 as well, because it's 5, which means it's always 6. My top 10s are always more than 10. It's just the way of how things go. Okay, so let's look and see what I enjoyed from August. First up, we have, okay, so from the Dinosaur Tales collection by Ray Bradbury, in particular the story Besides a Dinosaur, What Do You Want to Be When You Grow Up? By Ray Bradbury. I enjoyed this entire collection. I definitely would, you know, want to get it because it's illustrated and I like so many of the stories. But that story in particular I really liked because it really, I felt, walked the line of speculative fiction and realistic fiction. Like I wasn't ever quite sure if what was going on was speculative fiction or not. And it was a bit more sad, I think, depending on if it was or wasn't speculative fiction. And it really, I don't know, it was very atmospheric, but it was also melancholy, and I don't know why that made it one of my favorites, but it did. I just love Ray Bradbury. He's another author that I am working through all of his works, and so again, thrilled that I was able to get this one from the library because it was a collection of 6 short stories, I think 5 short stories and 1 poem, all on dinosaurs and all illustrated. It's a really special collection for sure. Next up, we have something that, oh yeah, I don't think I ended up talking about this one. Tree Mail, created and written by Brian Smith and Michael Reich. Art and colors by Brian Smith, lettering by Sarah Smith. This is a comic or a graphic novel. I don't know if it was a bind-up of comics or a graphic novel. I'm not sure. I can't remember if there were chapters or what. This is great. This is about, gosh, Tree Mail. Was he a frog? Can't remember. It's hard to tell. I think I had to add this one. Okay, well, I can't remember exactly what animal he is, but he is not a bird. He lives somewhere where birds are the people or the animals that deliver the mail, and our protagonist wants to deliver a mail. They want to be a mail person. So they study all of the notes and all of the rules of delivering mail, and they're super optimistic on being able to do it even though they can't fly, and it's just their dream, and so they go for it. And I really appreciated that. There is a couple of things in this one that I thought that, you know, they were really looked down on, so that I wasn't a fan of, by the birds and stuff. The birds are like, you can't do this, who do you think you are? But so anyway, I ended up loving it. I got it from Hoopla totally randomly. It was a total win, so that was great. Less randomly, wow, a lot of the authors I am working my way through, all of their works ended up on this, which makes me feel like I picked some authors that, guess what, I really enjoy. I'm just waiting for this to load. Wow. Oh no, I hope my internet isn't down, so I'll just show this until maybe eventually it'll pop up. So the next one I really enjoyed was Emperor and Galilean by Ibsen, translated by Michael Mayer. Oh man, I hope my internet's not down. That would be really bad. Let's see. Yeah, okay, there we go. Yeah, and yeah, this was a really great play. It was challenging. I did talk about this in at least one of my videos. It was challenging from the perspective that it dealt with themes of like religion and people not being okay with other people's religion and stuff like that. So it was heavy themes. But I thought it was brilliant. Like and I got so much from reading the foreword afterwards, and there were so many really great questions in this and moments. I remember one of the moments I had that felt like, wow, you very rarely see this in a book or any story, where someone outwardly says, do not harm someone else because of their religion. Do not do any damage to their religious like places. Don't do that. We're setting a rule that you can't do that. And I was like, wow, we should, like, that, I would like to see that theme more often. Like, I would like to see that outlook more often. And yeah, so I ended up really enjoying it. So yeah, working my way through Ibsen, yay! It was a bit of a long one, 200 pages in a very tight mass market paperback. The type font, the font was very close, but I did finish it. It took a while, but I did it. And then next up we have The Last Fallen Star by Gracie Kim. Oh, I actually have this in a physical edition. This is the first book in the Gifted Clan series. This one I buddy read with Izzy and Kate Kelly. It is part of the Rick Riordan Presents line. It is the first in the series. Next book comes out next year, and it is based on or centered, I don't know, like it pulls from Korean mythology, and there are 5 different, I don't know what I can't remember, clans, and they all have different attributes and philosophies that they follow, and so it's urban fantasy. It's, you know, the Rick Riordan Presents line, so urban fantasy, own voices, mythology. I loved it, loved it so much. Can't wait to see where the story goes. This one got my heart, definitely cried, probably more than once. It was a huge one. And next up, oh, it's actually a reread, and that is Sweep in Peace by Alona Andrews. This is the second book in the Innkeeper Chronicles. It's another urban fantasy series. Well, it's urban fantasy and science fiction. It's very, I have very rarely seen something that's a combination of both, but it really, really is. And I'm rereading this because I want to continue the series. So this year I've reread book 1 and book 2, and I'm looking forward to reading book 3, which is the first one that I haven't read yet. Yeah, absolutely love this series. The protagonist, Dina, is an innkeeper, and at her inn she houses guests that are supernatural or paranormal, which aren't known to the sort of mundane world. And as she has more guests, the more her inn thrives, and she actually has like a symbiotic relationship with the inn. Like, the inn is actually alive and has its own power. So I mean, like, it's just like all of the tick boxes. You know, I really, really love it. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens in book 3. And then my most favorite from the month of August was A Life in the Theater by David Mamet. This is another one that I got from the library. It's another play. This one follows an older actor and a younger actor, both during scenes and behind the scenes and after scenes and like just at the theater. And so it's amazing because you see little moments of plays that they're in together, as well as, you know, all of these little moments throughout their, you know, just working together, and when they're getting along, when they're not getting along, how they feel about each other, how things change, you know, how that dynamic of older, younger in the world of theater can work, can not work, and all of those things. I loved it so much. I still want to watch a production of this. I did find one, but I haven't watched it yet. So maybe that is something I should add it to my film spreadsheet so that I remember, because it's a bit of a longer work. So there you go. And that was actually in August. I had 1 reread and 2 plays. I didn't do any stats for July, but it was a lot of nonfiction. So there's a lot of nonfiction, a lot of plays, a lot of kids' books. It's kind of funny, and it makes me feel a little bit better, because one of the things I always find a bit strange when I look back on my reading is how few novels I read, especially like adult novels that aren't urban fantasy, or paranormal romance, or romance. Like, most of what I read is not. Like, we had dinosaur short stories, we had kids' books, we had board books, lots of plays, graphic memoirs, like, and it's all stuff I enjoy. So I try not to get hung up about the fact that I don't really read many novels, but it does feel like that's what, like, sort of like regular reading is, and I'm like, yeah, that's not what I tend to read, and it's obviously not what I enjoy, because not one novel made this list. Oh my goodness. Well, I guess technically speaking, Clean Sweep is a novel. But that's, oh, and The Last Fallen Star and Our Shah. I don't, like, kids' book, I feel are a bit different, but yeah. One novel out of, what was that? It was like 17 titles. It's okay. It's okay to love what you love. Anyway, let me know how your reading went this summer. Let me know what you're looking forward to in the fall. Is this a good way to do it? Maybe this is better to do like a seasonal wrap-up of favorites. And I will, as I said before, I will list down below all of the titles, and I'll do them in the order in which I shared them in June, July, August, separate, if there's something that you are looking for in particular. I thought it was actually a pretty good reading set. Some of these, it's interesting to see that some of these are from the library and some of them weren't. A bunch I got on Overdrive or Scribd or whatever. It's always a combination with me, eh? Oh, no matter what I'm trying to do, it's always a combination of things. Again, why go against it if it's how it works? I think it worked. I hope this video worked. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I'll be back soon with another video. Thanks so much for watching.